We've got new details this evening in the investigation into the death of a man found inside of a vehicle early Saturday morning. Officers were called to Leopard and Cantwell, where they discovered the body of that man slumped over the driver's seat. His death has now been ruled a homicide. According to police, 34-year-old Stephanie Ysassi has now been arrested and is charged with murder. She's being held on a $1 million bond. Of course, that investigation continues, and anyone with information that may help police is asked to call 886-2600.